Hello, everybody. This is Debby Enoe from Teacher Success Coach with another episode of the Female Educators Roundtable. As some of you know, I've been doing this for a year now been over a year actually, because when the pandemic started, I actually felt that I needed to connect with educators around the world. Because although we were so far away, we all had something in common. It's called the challenge of the online platform, which we knew nothing about. So we were all in limbo, confusion, stress, and anxiety. So I felt that I needed to connect with my fellow educators so we could share the anxiety and we could share the triumph and we could see that we're not alone. Because as I know this is cliche, a problem shared is a problem shared, or whatever it is. Anyway, what's to that effect, right? So a year later, I'm actually having educators, either some of them who've been on the show before, to tell me how it was teaching during this time, or new educators. So I would like to welcome my educator coming back, because when she was on the platform, we were talking about the challenges and triumph of online teaching. Now we're talking about 18 months after the real pandemic. What is education like? Is she still in it or she's out of it? I don't know. She's going to share it with us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And this is one of my colleagues from across the waters from the USA. So it's brilliant. Introduce yourself, Gillian, and tell us more about you. And then, let's dive right in.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for having me on today. I just have so much gratitude for having you in my life and having this platform to share with educators all around the world, with parents, with students, just, what is our real life like? What is our experience like? I love that I have this channel to have a voice. So my name is Janine Johnson, and I am an education specialist. I have a master's degree in teaching, specifically special education, and I am currently the founder, creator, education director of the Lifelong Learning Continuum. And I've transitioned from teaching in public school to building my own platform, another option for learning.
That's brilliant. Because when we spoke during the pandemic, you were still in the education system, right? Because you were talking about, some of the challenges of actually teaching online and stuff like that. So it's really nice 18 months on, you tell me that you've ditched the system and you're actually looking at alternative. That is even more brilliant. So tell us about it. Tell us what happened and, why did you transition from being in the box of the institution to actually flying your wings and demonstrating options?
Yes. Okay. So rewind 18 months ago. I was thrown in, just like every other educator, parent, student in the world, into learning from home, all based on the computer. And I had my 3 children at home, and at that time they were 12, 7, and 3. And then my 2 daughters were in distant learning. My 12-year-old did great. She was in her room. She knew how to log on and get into all of her classes. My 7-year-old really needed extra help with that. And she just really did not favor seeing people on a computer. She wanted to be in person with them. So as I'm trying to teach my students on my teacher computer, I have my 7-year-old next to me on another computer trying to help her navigate her classes. And then I have my 3-year-old usually on my shoulder like a parrot, trying to go over and say hi to my students. And I thought, okay, I got this. We'll get through the rest of this year. We'll get to go back next school year. Summer hits. Our school district did not know exactly what their plan was, because again, it's a numbers thing. We're waiting to see what the COVID cases go down so that we could reopen, come back in person. We wanted to make sure we had everything in place for safety, enough masks for all the students, enough desk dividers. And also our school district in particular here in California, there's a lot of students. Our average ratio of teacher to students is 1 teacher to 24 students. And even within the special education classrooms, which I am a special education teacher, we still had a high ratio of like 1 teacher to 12 students. So it, it was really a concern to try to just think for every different school within our school district, how are we going to fit the desks 6 feet apart and make sure that there's enough room for all of the students. There physically was not enough square footage in each of the classrooms. So with all of those logistics and issues, the kids ended up staying on distant learning. I knew that for me, it would be extremely hard to fulfill the requirements that the district had decided over the summer. They wanted teachers on their computers from like 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and doing synchronous live teaching. So if we had something happen with one of our own children at home, we couldn't just hop off, take care of it, and get back on. And I wanted to make sure I could fulfill the obligations of not only my work, but also my children. And so I chose to put my children first, and I stepped down from my position. I resigned. And I did not want to leave, but I felt like the school district was not giving me flexible options. They were telling me through their personnel office that if I said yes to the position for the new school year and did not, or was not able to fulfill that they could hold my credential and I couldn't go find work anywhere else. And that was a concern to me. So I just said, okay, I can't put myself in a position where I need to be open to work for anyone and be flexible and do what works for my family. So I chose to not return. I resigned. And then I also chose, by the time we got to the first quarter of the school year, to pull out my 7-year-old and homeschool her fully. And since I had done that, at first it was a struggle because we had to come up with our own schedule. We had to pull together our own curriculum, which I tried to use some of the school's curriculum since I had taught it for 7 years at that elementary level. That part we were okay with, but it was really just trying to establish a new routine. And what my daughter and I found is that it was so freeing. We were like, okay, we don't have to get up so early. We can decide to do math on just Tuesdays and Thursdays and actually like dig hands in deep into learning how to count change and count back money and learn the process as a whole unit instead of the way the school was doing it, which was you'd have an online lesson and then you'd do a worksheet. And it was just very short little snippets of things. Whereas my daughter, being the curious 7-year-old she is, when she saw money, she wanted to dig in and learn all about the money. She didn't want to move on to anything else until she knew everything about money. So I just really liked that I could individualize her education just like I was able to for my students with special needs who were in an individualized education program. With general education, they have to just follow the script. The teachers just follow this script of curriculum that the district gives them to teach. And they do have some flexibility to differentiate it, but they pretty much, because of the benchmarks and the standardized testing and the funding that follows that standardized testing, those teachers are just stuck in that system. They have to teach that. So it was so freeing to not have to follow a script. I still followed the standards because I wanted to make sure that whatever she was learning at home would have been what she was learning in 2nd grade in school. But we were able to expand on things. We were able to step back where she needed more support, like in writing. And she could just read however long she wanted to a day. She would pick out her books and read the whole book in a day if she wanted to. So I just really enjoyed that flexibility and time with my 3-year-old. I can include him in on our lessons. And I started with those preschool concepts because they all of those skills, they build on. So even though I was working with one thing with my 7-year-old, I could easily bring in my 3-year-old and say, well, let's go over this with you, such as learning ABCs or alphabet and numbers, counting, and then apply it at that level that my 7-year-old needed. And we'd still do like little play dates, or we would just take just myself and the kids and go to places that were open. Usually it was outdoors, like a park or something. And we would still try to get out and do little things, but just stay distant so we could be safe during the pandemic. So that's really what led me into creating something different for our community that was not a school, that was not a system. And it's been such a freeing feeling, but also very scary because it's very against the grain. It's very outside of the box. And I'm looking around going, okay, who's going to buy into this? But I do feel that there are other people out there that would actually just like to try that and go, oh, well, let's see what it's about. It's, it's definitely interesting and just a great journey so far. So that really was 18 months, the last 18 months of looking at everything. From then up until now, I did put my my daughter, who is now 8, I enrolled her into 3rd grade this school year. So she's not homeschooling currently. She just did the first quarter of school for 3rd grade. I wanted to see how she would do going back into the system after being homeschooled for a year, and then the time that the schools were closed. People think, oh, did they regress? Did they lose anything? She's ahead in math and reading. And I was like, yay, because I had time to work one-on-one with her.
It's interesting because that's the next question I was going to ask you, because one of the things that I'm getting sick and tired of, and I'm still hearing it, people talking about lost learning. And I keep on saying that, I even said that to my student today, learning is not about being in the building. Learning is a continuum. You're constantly learning. Because you're going down the road, you are learning. But because we have been so conditioned to think that learning has to take place in a building, we are forgetting that our brain is always learning. So what are your thoughts when you are hearing the constant phrase, it is such a cliche now, that the children have had lost learning? What are your thoughts on that?
I believe in the core of my heart that, and my being, that in order for us to learn, like absorb academic information, we have to feel safe. We have to feel like comfort. We can feel challenged, definitely, because it's challenging to learn new things at times, but just that safety zone around us. So I don't feel specifically, at least with my own children and students that I worked with, that they lost anything academically. I feel like they lost more of that social, emotional aspect because all of the unknowns. Now they're seeing classmates and teachers behind a computer all day instead of being at a school where they felt like part of that community with their teacher and their peers right next to them. And then just the fear of the pandemic, because they've all been told, you have to wear a mask, you have to be super clean, you have to stay 6 feet away from everybody. So I feel that the same way as you, I don't believe that learning just happens in between those 4 walls. Like it happens everywhere. And we all just like had that blunt stop in our schooling. And then we had to adjust and change. So if anything, these children are super resilient. And I believe that now that they're able to meet again in groups, whether it's in school or at home or at the local park, or maybe they're back into their sports or extracurricular activities, they're going to bounce back and move beyond it. I truly believe that.
Thank you. In the past 18 months, what are some of the things that you have learned? and have you or will you be implemented or have implemented in a new career because you're now in a new setting?
Yes, I think that's so important to ask. I love that question. So for me, I believe that education is not one size fits all. I believe that, at least here in California, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I'm sure it's similar, that we've created this society and we've created this education system for the majority of the people who need it. But since the pandemic, a lot of people switched from working in an office to working from home. A lot of people switched their dynamics. So there was a shift in our society. That shift in society opened up a whole new realm for education for all ages, not just school-age children, not just adults in university. People are now creating online courses. People are now creating their own content that they share online, but then they go meet locally somewhere. People were starting up their own gyms when the gyms were closed. They're like, come to my house. I have a setup in my garage, and they were getting paid for it. So this society shifted, and I just felt as an educator in my life and how much I really enjoyed that time at home being present with my children after 11 years of dedicating myself and providing a service to the public as a public school teacher, working with children with special needs. For those 11 years, I was not able to be there for all of my 3 children's milestones. They were either in childcare or they were with their grandmother. So being home with them for almost a whole year was such an amazing feeling. I got to know each of them, especially my 7-year-old with homeschooling her. Her personality, like her and I always was like, I don't understand her, but that's because I didn't have enough hours in the day with her. So being able to shift to working from home and being in charge of my own schedule and my kids' schedules, it really worked for me. So that's when I knew. I said, okay, this education system was amazing for 11 years. I learned so much. I still have tons of colleagues and friends and families that I'm connected with. And they're the ones who help me be successful with this today, because I have everybody cheering me on saying, do it, Janine, you've got this. You've always been an innovative thinker. You've always thought outside of the box. When the system told you no, you always just pivoted and said, okay, I'm going to try it this way. So I know that I have everyone's support. And those challenges pushed me hard. They pushed me so hard. I was about to give up. I almost tear up thinking about it, because I thought, my whole life, I just want to help. I just want to bring kindness to this world, and I want to help others. And now I'm watching this education system become more filled with more regulations, more guidelines, more mandates, and that doesn't fit everyone's needs. It does not fit everyone. It's not one size fits all. So I really feel that with my experience and my education and my background and just my passion and curiosity for living, that I have to create another option. There is no option for me to go back to the public school system. I have now taken that information and that experience and those memories, and I'm growing from that and shooting off into something totally new. And I just can't be more thankful for that. So I always try to see the silver lining in challenges and trauma and just anything that's hard in life. I try to see that silver lining. What good can I take from it? What lesson can I take? And use that to help myself and then help others.
It's interesting though, because for some people, the pandemic was a real negative. But I always say the universe doesn't give us all negative. There must be positive somewhere. For me, the pandemic was, yes, a lot of people have lost their life, but it was so positive for me because I got to like you, pivoted, and I got to think even more outside of the box. I was not a chalk and talk or in the box educator, but it made me feel it is okay now to be even further outside the box. So I actually gave myself permission in a big way to be outside of the box. And I didn't feel that I needed to apologize to be outside of the box because COVID have taught us that we needed to think outside of the box and find alternatives. So it really did help me quite a lot in terms of me going back into schools, how I now see that, because I see it as a whole different way. I see some educators still feel they could go back in the same old way, but it doesn't work because we need to use a lot more. I feel that we need to make use of a lot more technology because we've exposed the student to that. So we now need to continue to enable them to embrace it.
Definitely.
So when I hear you talking like that, I think, yes, that's so very true. Thank you for that. Another, as an educator, in what way have this pandemic affected your physical, intellectual, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being? How did the pandemic affect you on a holistic basis?
Yes, I'm so happy you asked that question. It's really been a challenging year and a half. At first, it was just truly bizarre. I felt like I was in a surreal world. I'm like, this isn't happening. A month ago, we were just living our normal lives, and now we all have to be in our houses at a certain time, and we can't go in public, and just all of these restrictions just to keep people safe for the time being until we could figure it out with a virus that no one really knew about. So with that, holistically, it definitely got to me, and especially because I'm very empathetic about my children and my students and everyone around me. I was always worried about them, and I worried about them so much that I didn't put my needs first at all. So then that weakened me, and on top of the way the year went and having to resign from my teaching position and then wondering like what's next, it was a difficult process. But like I said, it pushed me to pivot and be flexible and say, you know what, I have to continue to be a strong role model for my children, for my former students and their families who are still involved in my life, for all of my friends and family. I have to stay strong, and I have to be that light that I always have been. Be that light for people, because they will see it and they will follow me, and it will help bring them out of any darkness or doubt that they're feeling right now. So that was such a freeing feeling. And again, with going from public education to being my own boss, that's being an entrepreneur is such a different mindset, because my work is not consistent Monday through Friday. I get to make my own schedule. I get to decide what families and that I serve. I get to decide what I'm working on for the day and what I'm doing with my own children at home. It's really different. And then not knowing like, oh, am I consistently making this much money each day like I did teaching? That was a shift as well, to learn the financial part of being an entrepreneur. I decided to take classes. I utilized the technology. I got online and I searched far and wide, and I found a wonderful mentor, and I just decided to absorb everything I could, taking different classes, and then apply that to creating this new way of education. And again, in my mind, I was like, I have to create something new. So not only with educating myself, but writing those plans down, journaling, writing down affirmations. I had time to do that stuff because I wasn't in the public school system 8-9 hours a day having to fulfill those obligations. So I was able to work on me and love on myself. And that was such a beautiful, freeing feeling. And then the last thing is I was able to trademark the name of my education entity. I'm not calling it a school because really it's a continuum, and it's named the Lifelong Learning Continuum because learning is over a whole lifetime, and it isn't within those four walls, just like you're saying. It can happen everywhere, anywhere. My goal is to connect these families that want to homeschool and have no idea where to start. I want to connect them with educators who also want to leave public school but have no idea where to start. And I want to have that platform for them to build a strong community. And at this point, it will be a private education association because with public school, they are so restricted in the sense of having to follow the state mandates and guidelines, the federal mandates and guidelines, because that's how they receive their funding. What I'm creating is community built. It's grassroots. It's from the ground up. So we are putting all of our time, money, and energy into this, and we get to create it. The parents and the educators, we get to take back that control of what children are learning. And that is so powerful. So that's why I decided to become a private education association, so that parents and students and educators, that we could feel safe within our community and have that continuum of learning and not have those restrictions. So I feel like it's going to help a lot of people right now who are concerned about losing their position in public school because maybe they are not ready to be vaccinated yet. And same thing with the state of California. We are the first state, first place in the world, I believe, where our governor said they are mandating the COVID vaccine for students, and even in the daycares, and they can't do it until it's FDA approved. But I have a lot of parents in the community that I've been speaking with that they're not ready. They're not ready to put something into their child that they just feel like hasn't been researched on a long-term basis like other vaccines have. And our whole thing is medical choice. We just want people to have a choice. It shouldn't be made so quickly. So having those options is so important. That way there's a place for everyone. And there's a way to learn for everyone. And that's how it should be. There should always be options for everybody.
I so agree with you because, we know that some parents feel that there are no options because they're made to believe that there are no options. They're made to believe that you need to go to school, get a good education, go to university and get a good job. And then you repeat that cycle and then you die, right? So, and that's the sad cycle some of us parents, our parents have gone through. But we say, hold on, that's not enough. We need to be entrepreneur. We need to be creative. We don't have to follow the guidelines. We don't have to toe how they've programmed us because we find an alternative. And it is so true. But when you find alternative, it's tough because you're constantly working at it.
Yes.
In terms of your ability, right? You've been, you're taught online, and then you actually transition from online to making your own business, right? What would you say in terms of the pandemic? How do you feel that it affected your ability to teach, either positively or negatively?
I think at first I saw it as negative, and then I really saw the positive things in there. And here's why. So as I'm building this platform for Lifelong Learning Continuum, I thought we have families that need to create a homeschool schedule, environment, whatever works for their children, what works for them with their work schedules, and find something that can be wonderful for their family instead of stressful, instead of negative. Let's find a way to make it positive. So with that, I am on the same page as you with technology. I believe that having this ability to speak on a computer all the way across the world, that's such an amazing thing. I feel so blessed to have this connection as an educator, as an adult. Imagine a child being able to reach out and learn with a class in China or a class in India or the UK or anywhere in the world. It just really opens it up. And so with Lifelong Learning Continuum, there will be opportunities for educators to decide, do I want to teach some classes online from home? And just like there is a website called OutSchool, and they only offer online classes for instructors. And the way that they're designed is they really feed to that homeschool family. Not only do they have the standard subjects of learning, but they go above and beyond that. They have like a Minecraft club, and they have clubs for students with autism that want to socially meet other students with autism around the world. They have classes that support teenagers who want some social emotional guidance and help and support. And I really thought about that, and I thought that's a great platform because you're able to hop on for a 25-minute class. You're able to have any subject that you feel is important for your family or yourself as a student. And it's not within 4 walls. It can change and be anywhere. But then I also thought of how people want those in-person experiences. So I'm like, we need something local. We need options where if a family needs an educator to come to their house for 3 hours a day for 3 days a week, so that they're not in charge of the academics, then they can have that. And we'll find an educator who's like, yeah, I'll do that. That works perfect for my schedule. And then they, as an independent educator, they decide what rate of pay works for them and the family, and then they go and do that. And it just works. It's individualized. It works for their family. Some families might want to get out more and do more things. So I'm connecting with local museums and parks and libraries. I spoke with our town parks and rec department, and I asked, we have homeschoolers that want to start a garden. Can we start gardens in our community parks? And they said, we've never had that happen. We've never had anyone come to us asking that before. So they loved the opportunity. And I said, I will talk to all of the local businesses that have dirt and seeds and supplies available to get them to donate some things, as long as we can safely do it and not go against any of the park guidelines or regulations. Show up a certain day with our homeschool group, learn about gardening, have an educator facilitate it. And the parents would only have to pay like $5, because if you have your child there, you're paying your $5 American money, and then you have a group of 10, that's enough to pay that educator or pay for the supplies and the materials within that our continuum. So it's just so much opportunity opened up, and it really got me thinking in so many different ways. And I just thought, wow, like our homeschool groups can really help the community. We can dig in hands deep and be working on these things now. And children can have time to learn how to garden, learn how to cook, learn how to do things that they took out of schools because of technology.
Exactly.
The technology.
Yeah, it is so very true. It is so very true. Wow. It's like I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, wow. Because the beautiful thing about it is you're one of these educators who have transitioned, because after the pandemic, education didn't work for you. So, you know, when I say education, in school education in the four corners of the world didn't work for you. You wanted something much more. And it's so beautiful because when you're actually talking about how you transition and what happened, etc., it actually, you could actually visualize, you could actually connect with it because I could connect with it. And I'm sure other educators could connect with it because we actually see, why it was challenging to go back into the physical classroom.
It was. We had that shift in society, and now here we are trying to put a square peg back into a round hole.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and with educators, like everyone who is still in the public school system, they're just like, we're staying and we're going to make this work. And I just hope that the people above them who make all of those decisions, these board members, these superintendents, these city officials, these health and just all the people above us educators, I really hope this shift and they take advantage of it, just like I am, because it really can help us just create such a better future and make sure that we are feeding those innovators, those creators, those next inventors. If we just keep them in those four walls and give them that average, especially in America, we're like 40th in education in the world. Like how? America is known as like this great country and the number one military and all of this money, but how are we 40th in the world in public education? That blows my mind. It really does. I don't think it should be that way. So my solution to it is, well, grassroots. I'm going to round up some people in my community and we're going to create something new. And then by us doing that, we can help create an example and research and data to show these public schools, look, we're doing it now and it's amazing. You guys should try it.
Exactly.
Everywhere.
Yeah. It's like saying to them, you know what? You guys think it's working. It's not really working, You're just saying it's working because you don't want to change. And it's so very true because one of the beautiful things is I'm a supply teacher, so I go to different schools. And then you could actually see how some schools are willing to transition and others are not even interested. They're so fixed mindset. Where they're there, that's where they are. And they fail to realize we just had a pandemic, Remember, we were teaching online. So why can't we actually do a hybrid setup for children who is off sick or who have an appointment or whatever? You can say to them, okay, you have this appointment, log in at so and so time. So you're going to still get that education. And for also the educator who may not be ill, but the children is ill. So saying, okay, let's use this hybrid setup for you to teach your students. Some schools are on it and some schools are not on it. Because one of the schools I taught in, I think my son was ill. And I said to them, well, these are the options. My son is ill. It's either I could cancel my class and set them off, or I could teach online. So you guys decide what you want me to do. In the end, they then opted for me to teach online. And it was interesting because you were teaching online all the time, but then you went back into the classroom and now you're teaching online. You have a different appreciation for it because you're looking at it very differently because you know how to navigate things and you know what works and you know what doesn't work and you know how to make things work. So that's the beautiful thing about it. We're coming towards the end of the show, and I would like you to identify 3 tips that you would give to anybody moving forward. 3 things that you have now gained from the pandemic. I know you've gained a lot because I've gained a hell of a lot, but I want 3.
Yes, it's hard to pick 3.
I know, yes.
There is. And number 1, I would say, is that self-reflection. Right now, look at where you're at inside and are you okay? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling fantastic? What's making you feel fantastic? What's making you feel fearful or scared? Really think about that. Journal if you need to. Write it all down and get it out sometimes we have to do that. I had to do that to figure out, do I want to go back to public education? Do I want to just become a substitute, because they need a lot of substitute teachers right now, with just like you were saying, with some schools not allowing the teacher to teach online when they need to be at home with their child who's on a 14-day quarantine.
Yeah, I forgot that piece. Yeah, the quarantine story. Yeah.
Yes, is it working for you? And then also apply that to your family. Is the school system that you're now back into, is that working? And if it is, great, keep going with it. Whatever works for your family and yourself to feel that fulfillment, do it. And if it's not, change it. There's options out there, and where there's no options, create those options, or look for someone like me who's just like, hey, I'm here, let's make some options.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you. And reach out to others. We have this whole world. I feel like watching TV and watching media sometimes, I feel like the wording coming out makes me feel like the world's against me, but they're not. I know from speaking with you today, speaking with my other friends and family online, and new people that I meet through various platforms, that there's a lot more people in a positive state of mind, that we can all lift ourselves up if we're feeling negative about anything, and grow forward with that, create that growth mindset if we're stuck in that fixed mindset. So that would be the second thing, is like, use your resources, and if you don't have them, look for someone who can help you create them. And number 3, just be open to learning. Learning is a lifelong process. It's not something that only happens in school. So we really have to embrace that, now that we know that as a world going through this pandemic, embrace it, grow with it. I am just so excited for this opportunity to grow have my own growth, and being able to take the time to work on my health and wellness, as well as making sure my children are provided with an education, and that we also get to go and do fun things again now that sports events have opened back up, and just extracurricular things that we've always enjoyed. It really made me think, how do I want to build lifelong learning continuum? And there's 3 pillars. There's education, there's health and wellness, and there's recreation. And really, that's what I've learned from this pandemic over the last 18 months, is it's not just about education, which also happens to be my career. It's also about my health and wellness. It's also about doing things that are fun for myself and my family. So to be in this situation now where I get to create that, and I get to have other people join me, other educators, other families, students, it's an amazing feeling. I'm so happy I transitioned, and I'm just welcoming everyone in, and I'm so happy that we got to have this conversation today. Thank you,
wow. Thank you so much, Janine. Oh my goodness. And I'll be having you back tomorrow, where you are going to wear your other hat as a homeschooler. Because on a Saturday, I've got a co-host where we talk about home educating. In the UK, it's called home educating. In America, it's called homeschooling. So we'll be discussing how parents can actually take the leap, and how they would actually find the alternative. Because as we know, the pandemic was a way that actually shone the light to a lot of people, where they realized that the traditional education model has actually broken. It's actually broken, and you cannot fix it. Some people say if something is not broken, you can leave it. But the education is broken, because sadly, we're talking about one size fitting all. It doesn't fit all. And we know that model doesn't work. As I kept saying on every show, the pandemic have actually shown us how, in terms of individual differences and also differentiation. We used to do differentiation in the classroom, but however, the students have actually forced us to differentiate, and they actually did it for us because they say, you know what, I'm not coming on to school at 9 o'clock as how I would do in the physical classroom. I'm not even bothered to come in because they're not connecting to the online platform. Or when they come in, they put on, they log on, and they disappeared. So we had to actually see them as individuals. So this pandemic have actually taught us so much. And 18 months on, we are looking at what we have actually learned during the time of the pandemic, because we were all in there, you know, as if I felt I wasn't coming up for air. I was just in there. And 18 months after, I find that I'm coming up for air. I'm looking around and thinking, oh yes, I could do this like this, and I could take some of this and I could fix them together, because it is much a slower pace that I'm looking at things. Whereas during the pandemic, we were just on survival mode. It's just hit the ground running and run. But 18 months after, I'm really enjoying it in a different way, because although I'm, teaching in the physical, I've actually gathered a lot of things from the pandemic, which I'm actually now bringing into my classroom and, having the student connect with. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I imagine being a student in your class and feeling that energy as a student and thinking, wow, like this pandemic isn't the end of the world. We are going to learn above and beyond from this and still have amazing lives and grow forward with it. I love your enthusiasm. I love your mindset to adapt and be flexible and change. And I love that you're an advocate for changing the education system worldwide. I just love that.
Thank you. We just have to, because it's not working. It's not working. It's interesting because, as I said, because I do supply, when you see different schools, right? And I am so grateful because 18 months after, I'm actually going to a whole lot of schools, and some schools, one of the educators have said to me, I think it was deputy principal, I said that something I've said to him, and I said, well, I can no longer, just get the students just to sit passively. I said they need to be really, they need to be proactive. And as we know, the brain don't, you just sit down and just talk at them. It doesn't work. And then he said to me, how would you check that learning has taken place? So I said to him, well, you did observe my lesson. And one of the things I said to the student when we start is, you need to tell me what you're taking away from my session. So after the lesson, I said to the student, what were we doing? I think we're doing schizophrenia. And I said to them, that was about 3 weeks ago. And I said to the student, okay, what are you taking away from the session? I said, I don't want you to read it from the book. I want to quiet your mind and summarize. So when they actually gave me a summary, when I actually spoke, then the senior leader was saying to me, well, the way we do it is we put the PowerPoint on and they take the textbook and they copy from the textbook. I felt frozen because I'm thinking, just copying from the textbook, that is passive learning. Nothing is going in the head. It's just going in on the paper. And when he said to me, well, this is how we do it here. And I thinking, okay, that's what you expect me to do. But that's okay, because you know what? You're not going to be in my classroom every day. So therefore, as much as you think that's it, because the student don't learn like that. I'm coming from a psychological perspective where I know that you have to be actively in the learning so that it goes into your head. And the old model is still being used. And you're thinking, hold on, we just had a pandemic. Haven't you learned anything? It's mind-blowing. It's really mind-blowing.
And I think that's why this shift is here. I believe the shift in society is here. Right now, it's hitting us in the face. Wow, we need to change this now, because our students are on a level of thinking where they think the answer is always provided for them. They don't have to go discover it for themselves or find a whole bunch of resources and research to add to that, and then add their information on their experience and what they've researched and discovered into it. And that's because in public school, educators, they only have a certain amount of time to get that information in. So if we teach them those strategic things, those very simple go-tos, then they're just going to get in that repetitive mode of learning like that. But now we know that doesn't work. And now we're seeing it in these kids, and we're saying, have you learned anything? And I know they have, but now they have to shift it. And it's on us to help them shift that. So I stay passionate about it, and I'm excited for it. I'm like, okay, let's see what we can do with this here. And they'll be so thankful for it when they become adults, and they're like, wow, I can still be curious about things. Even as an adult, I can still learn new things. I can be an innovator. I can invent something, which I feel like myself as a 38-year-old woman, in school, I was kind of taught that school ends at 18 unless you choose to go to college, and that you really aren't continuing to learn. You learn what you need to know, and you get a career, and you work that same job until you retire, and then that life cycle goes on. And I now have a completely different mindset about it. So it's really it's really been an amazing journey figuring that out. And I love that there's like-minded people having you just express that and solidify that. It's not just us. There's a lot of other educators out there feeling the same way, families feeling the same way, students feeling the same way. So I'm happy about that, because now we can create that change.
Exactly. And it's like exactly what you say today. That's what I said to my student this after in my last lesson, because I had 2 periods with the same group. And I said to them, hold on, it is not about just going through the cycle, that you get a good education, you go to university, you do the degree, you come out, you get a good job, you work in the job until, 20, 40 years, then you retire. I said, no. I said, that's the old model. It doesn't work. We now need to start creating the new model. Something that works for us, because this whole thing of going to university and then coming out, I said, we need to think about becoming entrepreneurs. I said, we need to start thinking outside of the box. And the class was quiet. I said to them, okay, I want you guys to think about that, and we go over that again next week, because it's like how they've been conditioned. It's really
I'm glad the class was silent, though, because that really got them thinking. They really had to think about that. And now that that's in their head, they will do something with it, because I believe that is a moment of freedom for them, letting them know you can create more with your mind, you as an individual. It doesn't have to be a group consensus. We can all learn and grow in these different ways and come together and bring those amazing ideas and curiosities together and create something great with it. It
is so very true. Thank you very, very much, Janine. Is there anything else you want to say before we actually say goodbye to our audience and see them tomorrow?
Yes, I'm excited to hop on tomorrow, talk more about that homeschool realm. I was excited today to speak with you about 18 months later, what's going on in my world. And I just have so much gratitude. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you, audience, for everyone watching.
Thank you very much for actually accepting the invitation to come on to share with us 18 months on. And the beautiful thing about this is it demonstrates 18 months on, you didn't have to go back into the classroom. You could be creative and innovative and step out of your comfort zone and create something new, because the education system as it was, it doesn't work for everybody after the pandemic. So if it doesn't work for you, as you rightly said, change it. Do something different and enjoy it. Because there's a lot of people out there who are wondering, okay, I hate it in here. What am I going to do? They keep on saying they hate it, but they're still in there. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. And real quick, if they're not happy in what they're doing, what they're teaching, their students aren't going to be happy either. That energy is going to move on to their students. So it's time to think innovatively and change.
That is so good. That's point I forgot. Exactly. Because whatever we give out, we're giving it out to our students and they're feeling the energy. You know, it's interesting as you say that. It's like the students coming up and say to me, because I'm in a new school this week, and they say to me, Liz, you're so excited. I said, of course I'm excited. I love teaching. I said I could teach and I could talk for 365 days. They look at me and one of them said to me, but Miss, you need a break. I said, no, I love it. And I said, because I love it, I expect you guys to love it too. And that's something you said earlier on, education is not confined to the building. I said to them, everything around you is education. And I want you now to start thinking education is all around you. And don't think that you only start becoming educated either in sociology or psychology when you walk into my classroom. No, no, no. It starts from outside. You know, and that's something we need to remind students.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
You know, thank you, everybody. Have a great evening, night, morning, where you are. And even some of you may not be looking at it now live, but it's going to be on the platform and it's going to be on the YouTube channel. It's going to be in Janine's platform. So you guys feel free to look at it and send us a PM if you want to ask questions. That's what we're here for. And just continue to realize that education is not just in the classroom, it's outside of the classroom. Educators, you're doing a fantastic job. Make no mistake about it. And it doesn't matter if some people criticize you, just ignore them because you know where you come from and you know what you're doing. You need to love yourself. No one else is going to love you unless you love yourself, because too often educators loving everybody else, or they think they're loving everybody else, and they're not loving themselves. You cannot love anyone else until you start loving yourself. It starts from within, and then it spreads. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Take care, stay blessed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.